Good morning, everyone. It's day 2 of Technophobe No More. I'm very excited to be joined by Adrian Brown, who's the CFO for WAM Workspace. Adrian has been part of the WAM Workspace team since just about the beginning. And I honestly wouldn't be where I am in business were it not for Eddie's contribution to this team. So thank you for everything you do for WAM, but also for being on the call today. Adrian has experience in the bookkeeping and accounting arenas, including a big fancy degree. She's probably the only one in the business that actually has a degree in what she's doing, which is quite awesome. And so we're very excited to have Adrian with us to talk funny money. What we'll be talking about today is a lot of things around the sphere of money. So we'll tap into things like banking and South African banking and how to work internationally. As far as sort of banking and those sorts of things go, we'll also tap into invoicing systems and what's out there and how they work and that sort of stuff. We'll have a look at payment gateways and payment options for actually getting money out of your clients. And we'll also touch on, or I will touch on password managers and just how they relate particularly to finance and those sorts of things. So Eddie is going to screen share for us and we will chat about funny money.
Funny money, for sure. One of the most emotional topics in a business.
Oh. Absolutely. I will probably do a bit of musing because I don't know when my husband's going to suddenly start talking in his meeting.
Yeah, I apologize in advance in case the hardy-dars or the monkeys arrive because my dogs will go berserk.
All good.
Right, let's just get to where we need to be. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the lovely introduction, Bianca. I am Adrian. I am the CFO for WAM Workspace, although I think we should be honored and blessed enough to start adding WAM Workspace International to that.
Absolutely.
There we go. Right. As Bianca said, I do hold a degree. I have my BComp degree and I have completed my financial articles. But through that entire process, I very quickly discovered that I had a passion, and my passion wasn't to be the CFO of a huge listed corporation working 18 to 20 hours a day, living on 3 to 4 hours of sleep, crappy food and coffee. My passion lay with helping smaller businesses, helping entrepreneurs, helping people to understand their money. So instead of the big corporate CFOs who look at the picture on the front of the puzzle box and are able to tell you what's wrong with it, I ripped the lid off, threw that away and built the puzzle.
And now you work 18 to 20 hours a day and live on crappy coffee from home.
Yes.
Sorry.
Although I will say my coffee at home is never crappy because it ensures the survival of my family.
Sorry, I just like, I don't want to be a big CFO and survive on small amounts of sleep. And I'm like, and then she joined WAM.
No, I will safely say that being my own boss and deciding to work the hours that I work makes it so much better. Yeah, once I finished my articles, I did did things the weird way around. I stayed on with the firm that I was working with, and I carried on working for them for various clients, and then fell pregnant with my first daughter. And while I was off on maternity leave, I started carrying on doing the box jobs, the suitcases of slips that nobody else wanted to work with. And it reaffirmed what I'd been thinking all along, is that is where my passion lay. And I actually never resigned. I still joke about it 16 years later with the partners when I do bump into them. I never resigned, but I never went back. So I started my own business 16 years ago. doing bookkeeping and accounting, and have been ticking along. Decided at one point I needed to go back to work, and I was employed as the group accountant for a big national company based in Ballito. That lasted a year. It was 20-hour days. I never saw my family. I never saw my kids. I never saw my husband. Even they felt they owned my weekends as well. So when that ended, after a little bit of therapy, I went back to doing what I was passionate about. I went back to my roots. And in that process, I crossed paths with Bianca in WAM Workspace. And in the last, I lose track of years, I want to say 4 years, I'll never look back. This has been the best decision that I have made for myself ever. Obviously, besides getting married and having kids, but as far as business goes, being my own boss has allowed me immense freedom. If I don't want to work tomorrow because the weather's really nice and I want to take the kids to the beach rather, I can. If I want to make up that time at night while the family is sleeping, I can. And that is why I do what I do. And that is why I echo what Bianca said yesterday. We are immensely passionate about empowering other women to do what we do. Okay. Hopefully,
to choose the kind of coffee that you want to drink.
Yes. Definitely choose the coffee you want to drink in life. We should actually write a book sometime. Right. So today we're going to talk about funny money. As I said earlier, it's probably one of the most emotionally charged topics of any business. Any person, people, you want to start a fight with your husband? Start talking about money. Same thing in your business. Although what's one thing Bianca and I do not fight about is money, and that's because we communicate openly and honestly. Okay.
And I mostly just say yes to you.
The other thing with
not an
with
area
money,
that I'm terribly well educated in until the last 4 years. So thank you, Adrian, for helping me understand things better as well.
No, that's what I was about to say, is that part of the reason that you and I can communicate so openly and honestly is because I've helped you get an understanding of how the numbers fit together, how the puzzle pieces fit together, so that you can start to look at the big picture. Once you've started, you've taken the leap off the cliff, and you've decided you want to work for yourself, be your own boss, choose your own coffee, the first thing you're going to need is a bank account. You can start out using your personal bank account, but I can tell you now your bank's very quickly going to pick up on it. They're going to jump up and down and they're going to get quite upset. So even if you decide to start small and start as a sole proprietor, you need a bank account, and you can approach any one of the major banks and you can see them all there and explain to them what you're doing as a sole proprietor, and they will assist you in opening a bank account in the name of your business. Okay. So just as an example, obviously, we are a registered business, so our bank account is in the name of the business, which is WAM Workspace, but you may want to open a bank account and it would say then Adrian Brown trading as Adrian's Coffee or something like that. Okay, it will clearly state that it is a personal account, but you are a business because you are trading in your personal name. Okay. The other reason I would suggest that you make sure that you have a bank account from the outset is to keep things separate. You really don't want your personal income and expenses mixing up with your business income and expenses and just creating a horrible pile of soup that you've got to try and strain out the soggy noodles at the end of the day. Okay, keep it clean, keep the two things separate. Okay. If for whatever reason down the line in a few years' time you suddenly decide to take on a partner into your business, formalize your business, maybe you decide to actually, you've had enough, you want to sell your little business. It's so much easier if you've got a clean bank account and you've got a clean set of books to be able to value everything, to be able to sell it. Okay? Remember that your little business that you're going to start building isn't just paying your bills. It isn't just money coming in and out. It isn't just making you money. It's an investment. The value of your business keeps growing all of the time. Okay. Just two other names that we've got at the bottom there, obviously, are Payoneer and PayPal. And obviously, that's where you could look at taking international funds in. Okay. If you want to start locally, you want to start tapping into the local market, there's no need to try and do all of that now. Start small. The other one there that we possibly should put on is Pay Fast. So if you're wanting to collect payments from...
that's in the payment gateways one.
Ah, that's where it is. I knew it was there somewhere.
But yeah, so this was mainly just to talk about banking. I'll touch on the Payoneer and PayPal aspects quick before we go to the next screen. So Payoneer is basically a online sort of banking platform in a sense, specifically for international. It came out of the travel industry where cards were created. For those of you that have ever traveled internationally, you can purchase those prepaid cards in different foreign currency, and then you can pay with that currency. So Payoneer started off like that. And is now offering services for you to take international payments and then transfer it into other currencies. And there is the opportunity to get an actual credit card in a foreign currency. Well, it's not a credit card, it's a debit card in a foreign currency that you can then use to pay for things for international stuff. The other reason to and then the other one is PayPal, which is a little more widely known, a little more widely accepted. Is just a little more familiar. PayPal, you need to have a PayPal account, and you can pay to and from PayPal accounts. It's another option for paying. What's nice with PayPal is you can link any bank's credit card to your PayPal account. So it means that you can use it to pay for international products using your South African bank account without being charged in US dollars. So it does reduce the fees and stuff when you pay on your credit card and PayPal. But also you can keep money in a PayPal account and use that to pay for things as well. So just to kind of mention Payoneer and PayPal there. Adrian, I see we do have a question. Can I show it on stage? It does relate to the screen.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So what are the SARS rules for getting paid via PayPal for transcribing work? You won't go to jail like Al Capone, don't stress. Okay. So basically, even though you have a PayPal account, you need to recognize the income that you've earned and it's been paid to you through PayPal. You need to make sure that you recognize it. If you're working as a sole proprietor, you will run yourself a little set of books. Doesn't need to be anything overly complicated, but when it comes to doing your annual tax return, you need to declare that income and the related expenses to SARS. So the fact that it's foreign, the fact that it's come through PayPal, SARS don't mind, as long as you are declaring it to them on an annual basis. So I hope that answers your question.
I guess also my question there to Ursula would be are you pulling those funds into your South African account, or are you paying for things from PayPal? I was going to say there is kind of
but as far as SARS goes, whether you're paying out of PayPal, that's fine. Then you record the expenses for your business as well. The income and expenditure needs to be declared.
Yeah, you will get emails from SARS telling you that you're not, from PayPal telling you that SARS says that you have to pull the money out of your PayPal account within 30 days and those sorts of things. But from experience, we haven't found that to be a necessity.
Yeah, so I see there, Ursula says she pulls them into her local bank account. Yes, they do take a commission and a fee to process that payment into your FNB account or to your Capitec account. That is quite normal. And yeah, as long as you are recording the income and expenditure and you are declaring that to SARS and not trying to hide it from them, you'll be absolutely fine.
Just one note there that I will add, because there is quite a lot of confusion around this in South Africa. FNB has signed an agreement with PayPal, and you have to pull, if you pull PayPal money into a South African bank account, it has to go via FNB. You do not have to have an FNB bank account. You do need to have an FNB online banking profile, but that doesn't require you to have an FNB bank account. And you can transfer that money to any South African bank account. So just so that you are aware, yes, you have to have an FNB online banking account. No, you do not have to bank with FNB in order to use PayPal.
Cool. Sorry, I don't know what happened to the screen share. Give me a second just to get it back up. I think that pretty much covers everything from a banking point of view. And the ins and outs there. It is quite important. So basically, you need to have a bank account for your business. Whether you're running as a registered business, whether you're running as a sole proprietor, however you're choosing to do it, you need to have a bank account. Is that screen share showing? Yes, it's back. Cool. Right, I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is invoicing. And this kind of ties into invoicing and accounting. You need to be invoicing your client. You need to be recording who you're invoicing, how much they owe you. Make sure that you are setting off the payments correctly as they come in through your bank account. You need to make sure that your business expenses are being recorded regularly, because at the end of the tax year, remember, a tax year runs from 1 March to 28 February every single year here in South Africa. When you do your annual tax return, you will have to be able to pull an income statement or a little profit and loss statement and to show SARS what money you've received, what expenses you've paid out, and they will decide whether or not, based on that, combined with any other income you've got, whether or not you need to pay them any money, which hopefully you won't if you're smart. So these are sort of the popular options here in South Africa. I'll just run through some of them. The biggest one used to be Wave. Okay, it was a free bookkeeping and accounting platform. You could invoice out of it. It had a cute little app that you could use. Unfortunately, during the course of, I think it was last year, possibly the end of the previous, Blues Day. At the end of 2019, they just came out and said that they are concentrating on their target market, which is the US, and that if you were based outside of the US, you would not be able to register a new profile with them. If you were lucky enough to have an existing profile with them, you haven't been hindered, you haven't been kicked out in any way. It just means that you're not going to get extended support from them going forward. But my gut feeling with this was, at some point, they're going to pull the plug on supporting businesses outside of the States. With that in mind, they partnered up with another platform called Zoho, and they had a deal where if you were a Wave customer, Bianca, what are you clicking?
Wasn't me. Do you want me to share?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm not touching anything. But they partnered up with Zoho, and what the deal was is that if you were a Wave customer, you would be able to migrate your information across to Zoho, and Zoho you wouldn't pay a fee for the first 12 months. Zoho do have a free option, but it is only single currency, and there's certain reports that you don't have access to, etc. For a very small business who's working in a single currency market, absolutely the free version would be perfect. I've got a couple of clients that I've set up on Zoho, and they use the free version and everything ticks along. It gives us what we need in terms of reporting. If you're wanting to invoice out in multi-currency, so in dollars or pounds or euro, you're going to need to go with their paid option. It's really not a heck of a lot of money. They charge 199 Rand a month plus a small processing fee. It generally, so depending on the exchange rate, you're looking at between 200 and 220 Rand a month. To run a full accounting system, it's as good as free. I have personally moved everything for WAM Workspace onto Zoho in the process of the last 12 months. And as far as a platform goes, that's user-friendly, easy to use, has all the bells and whistles of a big accounting software, look no further. Fantastic, fantastic offering. Another one there is ZipBooks. Does have a free version, incredibly limiting. It's clunky. It makes processing very difficult. If anyone wanted to look at it, it would not be my first option. If I had to choose between Zoho and ZipBooks, it's a no-brainer where I would go. The other ones there, just to mention, obviously QuickBooks. They've also now got, it used to be sort of the old days, you'd have to buy the good old CD-ROM and install QuickBooks, and it would be a standalone version on your computer. They offer a cloud version now as well. Internationally recognized, it works. I still prefer Zoho, but again, it's personal preference. Another cloud-based system there is Xero.
Just on the QuickBooks things, there are some countries that still prefer QuickBooks over other platforms, purely because it integrates with their systems and those sorts of things. So it is likely that certainly in a service-based industry where you're wanting to work internationally, that you could get clients that prefer QuickBooks over other platforms because of their local reporting or something along those lines. So it is just sort of something to keep in mind. So don't immediately be turned off by QuickBooks from a client if they are working in the QuickBooks, because there are some countries where that's the sort of norm. If that makes sense.
And it's there are some countries where they prefer for it to be used because QuickBooks themselves have done a lot of work with their local tax authorities. So all of that comes kind of standard set up based on where they are in the world. It's very easy to use. It's a user-friendly system. It works slightly differently to Zoho in terms of processing, but everybody does things differently. Every single one of these platforms has got something good and something not so easy to use about it. So I wouldn't discount any of them really at the end of the day. But the other big players there in the cloud accounting or cloud invoicing market are definitely Xero and Sage. Xero is also a foreign based. There is a cost attached to it. As far as I know, there is not a free version of that, but very easy to use, very easy to set up. Sage is a local based company. It is a very nice, very easy to use cloud-based accounting system. For me personally, its major downfall is the cost. I think I just had to renew one for a client late last year. I think it's in the region of 3,300 Rand a year. The other problem is I lost a lot of faith in Sage a couple of years ago where they had a major system issue and the entire site went down for 10 days. You couldn't access it to invoice or do anything. And this all happened over month end, which is obviously not the end of the world for a small business, but for big corporates that use Sage 1, it meant they couldn't get VAT submissions in on time. It cost users millions. There's still fights going on about it. Me personally, I do have a couple of clients that still use Sage religiously, and I can tell you at least once in a processing cycle, I get a glitch on that system. There is still something wrong. I have raised a ticket to alert them to it. Whether or not anything's going to be done about it, I don't know. The last one there is Omni Accounting. It's a very nice system, very easy to use, but it's kind of a little modular system. So you buy modules from them as you need them. So you have your banking module, you have a bookkeeping, an accounting module. If you want to invoice, you have to buy an invoicing module from them. So their thought process is that there's a base and you add on what you need, and you don't take on any of the other fluff that you don't need. So from that respect, it is a very nice system, but have a look around. I'm not saying that any single one of these, there are others too. These are just the most sort of popular ones out there. But have a look around, have a look what you see, have a look what you like. Most of them do free trials. Go in, have a fiddle, have a play, do some invoicing, allocate payments, bring your bank statements in, and find where you feel comfortable in putting your numbers together. Obviously, you need to look at this from two sides. The one side is obviously setting up a little set of books for you to run your new business from and make sure that you're keeping a track of all of your income and expenditure for that business. And the other side of it is if you're wanting to do VA work as a bookkeeper for other people, is having an idea of what all these different platforms are, so that if a client comes to you and says, hey, Bianca, I've got a set of books in QuickBooks, can you help me? You've had a look around, you've done a little bit of research. You might not know it all, and don't panic, none of us do. But you can say, yes, sure, we can take it on. That sort of thing. So there's two ways.
They shouldn't ask me though.
Oh, you don't give yourself enough credit. You were doing just fine when I came along. Right, so that kind of covers up, I think, invoicing and accounting. I don't see any other questions there, so I think we're gonna move on to the next one, which is online payment processing. So that's great. We've got this like really awesome little web page, and we've got ourselves out there as a business, and we're selling our services. But how do we get the money in? And there are a lot of online payment processing options out there. If you're planning on dealing with South African companies and individuals, you're going to look at something like PayFast. What they do is they collect the payment from either via instant EFT or via credit card from your customer. They deduct a small admin fee or processing fee, and you are able to then draw those funds out of PayFast, and they pay it across into your local bank account. And it's as simple as that. There are options to do.
Yeah, sorry. As far as I know, PayFast is also the only platform in South Africa that's integrated with Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and all of those new phone-based payment options. So they do a lot of that processing in South Africa as well.
Oh, cool. Awesome. It is handy to have it. It is a little bit of admin and a little bit of PT to get it set up initially, but I really would recommend that you do it. Once you've done the PT, once you've done the admin and you've ticked all their boxes and sent them all their documents, it is a worthwhile arrow to have in your arsenal. The other one there is Shopify. They do online payment processing, but as far as I know, is it only for their Shopify websites?
Yeah, so it's only within Shopify websites, and they are limited in the currencies that they can process in. So it's not the biggest option for South Africans, but it is sort of something to just know that Shopify does process payments. It's also something to keep in mind, which we'll touch on Friday as well when we talk about websites. But a lot of people think that signing up for a Shopify site is going to get them all of these processing platforms and those sorts of things available to them as South Africans. However, they kind of sell you on it, and then you log in and realize that you can't actually process payments in Rand. And then Shopify charges you a service fee for using a different payment processing platform. So it is just sort of some of the things to keep in mind with Shopify, but it's useful to know that Shopify does have their own online payment processing, because if you're working with international clients, they are, it is possible that they are dealing with Shopify and processing their payments directly on Shopify or through Shopify's payment processing.
Just remember, obviously, with all of these online payment processing options, that although your customer may pay you today, it can take 3 or 4 days for the money to work through the various systems and end up in your bank account. So it is something you just need to bear in mind, that there is a delay between your customer paying and you physically getting the funds into your local bank account.
And an important note with just about all of these payment processing platforms is your very first payment can take anything from 7 to 21 days to get into your bank account. So don't be relying on getting that those funds directly into your account in a very short space of time. It's also why, as Adrian mentioned, it's important to sort of set up some of these things early on in your business so that you've gone through all the hoops to get the sort of payments coming into your account at a slightly faster rate so that you can do that. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, cool. And then obviously from an international funding point of view, there's PayPal. I think we touched on that quite nicely just now with banking. Payoneer, same thing, also processes your payments. Payoneer is a little bit more restricted in terms of who pays you through them. It's got to be a registered business. They've got to have a business bank account. So an individual cannot pay you into your Payoneer account. That's just their rule.
They can with the credit card.
But
we haven't quite.
They keep changing the rules. We've been very lucky, thanks to Bianca's eagle eyes. We've been able to register a Stripe account, which is obviously first prize for us in terms of taking funds from clients, especially from their credit cards, in a foreign currency. All of these, in a roundabout way, work the same way. They take the payment for you. They process it through all the checks and balances. They've got all the security in terms of checking that the funds do land in the account, nothing gets reversed, etc., from a merchant point of view. And then the funds get transferred through. Sometimes you've got to go in and action it, but some are done automatically. But the funds land up back in your local bank account down the line, obviously barring any exchange commissions and additional fees that your local bank may take as well. And just one thing to remember, that no matter what online payment processing system you decide to use, there is a fee that will be charged, because they need to process that payment and take the risk of processing that payment on your behalf. Okay, so have a look around. Some are more than others.
That as well. Yeah, but I wanted to talk to that as well. Is accepting that payment gateways and payment processing platforms are going to take fees is a very important part of. It's very much a mindset thing as well, and I think a lot of people get hung up shopping around to different payment processing platforms and spend hours and hours trying to save 1% here and there, when actually, if you rather focus on getting the payments in and what makes it easiest for your clients, that is going to bring you the most money ultimately in the long run. And so getting caught up on which payment processing platform to use, or which, and sort of every time someone mentions a different platform, or choosing that they've signed up to this thing that's this much cheaper or whatever, just think about the amount of hours that you spend moving stuff around, or changing things, or educating your clients on how to pay you on a platform that they've never heard of, or fielding those sort of questions. And I think it's really important to sort of make a decision on what it is that you are going to use. Communicate once to your clients about how to use it, but also focus on platforms that are recognizable. So in South Africa, almost everyone who's ever purchased anything online has used PayFast. Paygate is out there, and there are a couple of other South African payment processing platforms. But how many questions are you going to be fielding in your inbox from clients that are going, I've never heard of this payment processor. Is it legit? Can I rather just send you an EFT? And you could just lose sales with people that don't even bother to send you a message. PayFast is recognizable. It's kind of well known.
Reliable.
It's reliable. They've got really good merchant support as well. And particularly, the one thing I'm always really impressed with them is over the festive season, they reduce the number of people that are client-facing, and they up their customer service for their merchant-facing platforms, so that the merchants are getting help as quickly as possible during a very busy season. And so it's those sorts of things that you want to... It's worth investing that little bit of extra money in order to make sure the client is paying you. I come from a travel background, and I remember initially like doing everything to try and get a client not to pay with credit card, because especially if it was American Express or Diners Club, which was like 5% or 6.1%. But then you'd end up losing a sale. And what's the point in that? I would rather lose that percentage of swipe fees and get the sale than fight over how somebody wants to pay. So if you make it as easy for the client to pay as possible, then you are more likely to get those sales. So focus on what is recognizable, what is easy and simple for clients, and what reduces the amount of admin for you as well. So yes, EFTs are great, but then you have to wait for the money to clear, and you have to go into your bank and check that it's actually there. And it just adds a little bit of time. So if you think about how much you're charging per hour, and you then work out the amount of time you spent matching up EFTs to invoices and manually doing all of that payment processing, how many hours of your time at the rate that you charge clients have you now lost doing admin, when you could have just had them pay via your website on PayFast, lose 1%, but you've now saved yourself 2 hours of admin a week, for example.
Yeah, I think the other side of it as well is that take an honest look at yourself. In the last 2 years, we've all had to learn how to shop online a heck of a lot more than we did previously. And if you get to the end of placing your order, whether it was for a product or for a service, and you suddenly directed to banking details to go and do an EFT, the likelihood of you losing that sale is pretty good, because the human being is the laziest creature. You add an extra step into the process and we lose interest, or the way things are going now, you get distracted. There's so much on the go. Rather give them the option, hey, here's what you're wanting to order from me, this service. Here, pay for it. Boom, done. Okay. You might lose out on a couple of percent, okay, but then you also need to learn how to cost your products or your services to take that charge into account. So essentially, you're not actually losing out at all. Okay. Cool. So I don't think there's been no questions on payment processing. So I think the last thing we just had to have a chat about this morning was password managers. And I'm going to definitely hand this part over to Bianca, who a few years ago introduced me to password managers and not the front page of my diary or saved passwords on my browser. And I can safely say that 1Password has changed my life.
Yay. Yeah, thanks to my husband who introduced me to password managers probably 10 years ago, if not longer than that ago. Thanks. He's not actually in this meeting. That was a comment to his meeting. It was just very perfectly timed. Yeah, so password managers, and the reason that I cover this under finance and money is because probably the one place that you're going to get the most reminders about not writing down your password and not saving your password in your browser and all of those sorts of things is in your finance platforms. So your bank is going to, I mean, FNB, granted, we've had numerous fights with them about how they refuse to let you use password managers to put your password in, particularly on the phone app. Which is really dumb because they want you to have a unique, complicated password that they don't want you to write down or save anywhere. I'm like, really? So that is where password managers come into play. And so you've got the sort of built-in browser or machine password. So Mac and iOS have got the iCloud keychain, and that's built into all of your Mac devices, and it's linked to your main login. It's really important to make sure that if you are using the keychain, that you have a very strong password on your computer and linked to your iTunes account that cloud keychain is linked to. The other thing to keep in mind is when you are using these sort of device based password managers is that often if you now change from an iPhone to an Android phone, you lose all of the passwords that you had saved in your keychain, and you can't access those from an Android phone. You now need to update and save all of those passwords into the new Android version, which is their built-in sort of password manager. And similarly, now at least with sort of cloud stuff being so prevalent, you at least can save a lot of that stuff into the cloud, and you can probably access it via a password. But certainly a few years ago, where you didn't really log into your machine, for example, your actual desktop or laptop with the same logins that you were using on a phone, you kind of had your passwords all over the place, and you had them saved in various different places. Like Adrian said, the front page of her diary. Like a client of mine has a printed laminated page in 24-point print so that she can read it because she's elderly. Definitely not the safest way to travel with your passwords. So using something like a password manager, particularly a standalone password manager, generally means that you can access those passwords from multiple devices quite easily without having to remember every single password. So the whole thing about, you've probably heard, I mean, it's all over the place, about websites that have been compromised and client data that's been compromised that includes passwords and those sorts of things. It's important to remember that the only time that that's a major problem is when you use the same password on everything. So if you use the same password or you use the same sort of formula to create your password, you then are at risk for, if one of the websites gets compromised, you are then at risk of every website, app, program that you use that particular password on now becomes vulnerable, because they can now use that password to access your information all over. And computers are very clever, and the hackers that run these sort of systems to try and get into information have ways and means of getting around all of this information. And if you use like the same formula, we had a client who used her date of birth, the first letter of whatever program she was on, and an exclamation mark. That was her standard password for everything. And yes, it wasn't. It was a unique password, but the formula was exactly the same, which meant that once she was compromised in 2 places and they could link it to the same email address, they could then work out exactly what her formula was, and that was all that they needed. So using a password manager means that you can genuinely create a unique password for every single platform, and you only have to remember one password, which is referred to as your master password. So the 2 main players, there are multiple other options that are out there, but the 2 main players that sort of come up particularly in the world of virtual assistants is 1Password and LastPass. LastPass does have a free tier. You can only use it on a single device for free. As soon as you want to use it on, for example, if you want to have it built into your laptop and then also used on your phone, you then have to pay. So that is sort of something to keep in mind. It's not terribly user-friendly, and navigating within LastPass is not my favorite. I do use it for a number of our clients, but it's not my favorite. And it can get quite pricey quite quickly if you work on multiple devices and those sorts of things. So in our business and in our family, we use 1Password, which lets you create multiple vaults. LastPass is sharing passwords from LastPass can get a little complicated as well. And so that is sort of something to keep in mind as well. Where 1Password lets you create vaults, and you can share all of the passwords within a particular vault. It is a paid platform, but it is well worth using because you get a lot of control, particularly as the business owner. So you can decide, you can now also share from 1Password single passwords. And you can share it in such a way that the person receiving the share can't actually see the password, but they can log into the platform that they need to log into. LastPass does also give you the same thing, but its integration just isn't as fluid and as easy as 1Password is. So both 1Password and LastPass have phone apps, as well as having browser extensions and apps built into your machine. There are a number of settings that you can use to use them. What I love about 1Password, for example, I have, I think the last time I counted, and I'm sure there's more now, 28 Google logins that are saved in my 1Password. So I would go insane if I had to write down and remember every single Google password. And if I had it in Keychain, it would be even more confusing because I would need to be able to figure out exactly which one I'm looking for and which is the correct one. Whereas in 1Password, it's organized in vaults. And so I can very quickly see which client's login I'm looking for, whether I'm looking for one of my personal ones or one of my business ones, etc. So password managers give you the opportunity to ensure that you've got a unique password. Both 1Password and LastPass have options built in to tell you when a website has been, when a password has been compromised, as well as when you've reused a password. So you have the opportunity to go in and correct those sorts of things as well to make sure that your online space is as secure as possible. And I think particularly when we're dealing with client information, it's really good to make sure that you're keeping that information as safe as possible, which is why I recommend using 1Password or LastPass. You should never, ever, ever be keeping password information in a plain text document on the internet. Or even on an internet connected document. So if you're on a machine and you've got it, and you've got all your client passwords saved in a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet, that really is very dangerous because it's not secured. It's not being encrypted on the internet, which means that hackers, should they ever get access to your machine for whatever reason, they now have a list of all of your client passwords. So, yeah.
I just want to add in there that using your password saver in your browser is not a password manager. It's not actually very secure. Case in point is a client of mine actually gave me a laptop to use for some of their processing. And the previous accountant has saved all of her passwords for all of her personal bank accounts and everything there. If I was that way inclined, or that laptop got into the wrong hands, she could be in a lot of trouble, because the information is just saved there for anybody who actually can get into that device and get onto the internet with it.
And I think it's important to note that should your device be stolen and your passwords are compromised because they were saved in an easily accessible format on that device or machine, you can be held liable for anything that your client loses because of that. So sort of really some things to keep in mind sort of when it comes to password management. And again, the earlier in your business that you set up a password manager and get used to using it, the better it is for your business. It just becomes part of who you are and how you work, and it just becomes that much easier to just manage everything. And it also means that should you decide to grow in your business at a later stage, or as Adrian mentioned earlier, sell your business, you just sell that 1Password access as part of the business, and all of the passwords are secured. They are put away. What I love about 1Password as well is we have a family account as well. So for things like our Netflix logins and Apple TV logins, all of those sorts of things are in a shared vault between my husband and I can access them at any time when I need to log into anything. So you can pick and choose what's shared and what's not. And 1Password has the option that you can set up an emergency contact should anything happen to you. And your emergency contact can contact 1Password, let them know what's happened, send through a doctor's note or a death certificate, and they immediately get access to everything, which means that if something happened to you, if you think about it, if your passwords are all saved in your iCloud chain or in a document that you've carefully named something obscure so that nobody finds it, what's going to happen if something happens to you and family members need to get into your passwords for whatever reason, because they need to get into your banking or those sorts of things. So just something to keep in mind. And that, I think, is everything for today.
That it is.
So tomorrow we're going to go into Chit Chat. And Chit Chat, we're going to be looking at a lot of the online chat platforms, as well as ways to communicate with your clients and those sorts of things. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. And again,
cool. Thank you all so much.
We'll stay on for a minute or two if there are any additional questions on funny money. Oh, I was going to share, we do have this option should you want to sign up, which just helps you figure out your pricing. So I will add that link into the Facebook comments and when we load the video to YouTube. And we will see you all tomorrow at 11 o'clock for Chit Chat. Thanks, everyone.